Hey guys, this is the retest or the reteach, I should say, of T7. So that would be that second standard. If you looked at that standard, if it was green, you should not be listening to this. You're more than welcome to, but you don't have to. You might have other things to work on instead. That means you got 100%. You're proficient in the standard. If you did not, if you got a yellow or a red, then we are taking this. Okay, we want to get that 0 or 3 up to a 6. Okay, that retest. It doesn't change your grade, right? It's just supposed to help it better, to get better, okay? So, this standard is talking about our special rights. So we have two special rights. We have that 45, 45, 90 triangle. And then we also have, let's do blue. And we also have the 30, 60, 90, okay? Special rules, you don't have to use them. If you do not like them, you can use trig. I'm going to show you both ways on all these problems, so this one might be a little long, which is fine, okay? So again, all we have to do is special rights to identify which one to use and how to get to the other side that they're asking for, okay? So, number 1 says find the value of x, okay? Well, x is a side. Awesome. Well, that would be this type of triangle, because we have a 45, 45. So we know 45 across from that 45 is our leg. That's x. Well, we know the other leg is exactly the same. Okay, and our hypotenuse is x times the square root of 2. Again, I'm just copying those numbers right above it. Well, okay, I already have that square root of 2. It gave us that. So what's the number in front? Our number in front is our x, which should match our two legs. Holy moly. It's b. It's 9. Our x, the number for that square root of 2, is 9. It already gave it to us. It didn't give us a decimal. It didn't give us this whole number. It already had it in that value we wanted. Okay? Again, if that makes no sense to you, let's use trigonometry. Trigonometry, again, we start with our angle. We figure out what trig function we use based on the sides given. Okay, so from this angle, this is our opposite. That 9 times the square root of 2 looks like the adjacent, but really it's across from that right angle, so we have a special name for the hypotenuse, okay? Opposite over hypotenuse should be our sine. Again, those should be up on the board as well, so if you have any questions on how I got that, just look up on the board. Sine should be O over H, okay? Opposite is x. Hypotenuse is 9 times the square root of 2. Okay, you don't have to simplify that. Your calculator should already have it set in there for you. So again, to get x by itself, let's just multiply that denominator on both sides. And we can put this entire thing straight into our calculator like this, okay? I'm going to put that first number first, but it doesn't really matter, okay? Let's do sine of 45, close that, sine 45, close that parenthesis, times 9. To get that square root, press second in that x squared button, 2. And there we go. We got 9. We just proved it. Special rights is just a quicker way of doing these trig functions because there's already a rule to them, right? Someone a long time ago figured out that there's a rule when solving these problems, right? That's why they just have these rules already given for us, okay? Perfect. Let's go to the next one. All right, again, we know it's a 45, 45 triangle. They tell us that angle, so I'm talking about this guy right here. All right, I'm given a leg. We know the legs are across from that 90-degree angle. So if this guy is x, well, in our diagram, we really shouldn't call him x, right? 45 should be right here as well because they're the exact same. It's a isosceles triangle. If this is 3, then this leg has to be 3 as well. What we see to get from the leg to the hypotenuse, we just multiply our x by the square root of 2. So to get to our leg to the hypotenuse, just multiply the x. We'll multiply our leg by the square root of 2. Well, yeah, square root of 2. So it already kind of lays it out for us. 3 times the square root of 2, which is c. Again, if you're like Mrs. Minor, stop doing special rights, no idea what you're talking about, completely fine. Let's figure out what trig function we have. Look at your angle. Let's find the two sides that we have. The angle to side 3 is the adjacent. X has to be that hypotenuse then. Okay, so the trig function, if you look on the board, that uses a and h would be cosine. A goes on top, so 3. X goes on the bottom, right? So again, we kind of have a quick rule for this. When we have x in the denominator, we have a rule that, again, it's just the same steps as what we were doing. Multiply x on both sides. I can't simplify that, which is fine. X times cosine of 45 equals 3. Well, to get x by itself, let's divide by cosine of 45. And those are like a pair. We have to keep them together because I know that angle. And this is the exact thing I can put in my calculator. Okay, it should give you a decimal, which is fine. But that would cancel off A and D automatically. I would just type these two things into your calculator and see which one matches our decimal. That's all you got to do. Right? The quick way also with doing when x is in our denominator is just switching our cosine, so that trig function, and that x, just switch them positions. Just like what we did over here, right? Our trig function became the denominator, and our x became the left side of our equation. So let's put in 3 divided by cosine of 45. Should give us that 0.24. Again, also, we just saw that it erased A and D because we have a decimal. Let's see what B and C do. Obviously, our special rights told us that it's C because we are talking about a square root of 2 in that 45, 45, 90-degree triangle. But let's just check. 3 times the square root of 3. Well, that number doesn't match. Let's see if that 3 times the square root of 2 is going to match. Which it does, right? Those two numbers are exactly the same, so C is correct. Okay, let's do number 3. There we go. A 6-foot ladder leans against a house. Right, we kind of already have that figure. If the ladder makes a 90-degree angle, right? So the ladder is this guy right here. Obviously, we've seen a ladder against a house before from the ground. Okay, how far up from the house does the ladder reach? Right, so we're talking about height up. So again, they already labeled that correctly for us, which is awesome. Right, and they want us to round to the nearest tenth if necessary. All right, perfect. We're talking about a 30, 60, 90 because they tell me I have a 60-degree angle. So let's look back up here. The side across from that 30-degree, that smallest angle, is our x. The hypotenuse should always be x times 2. And to get to our long leg from that short leg, we technically just multiply x by the square root of 3. Okay? Well, right now I'm given my hypotenuse. So to get from the hypotenuse back to my short leg, this is 2x equals 6. Okay, well, to get x by itself, we divide by 2 to get back to that x value, right? So 6 divided by 2 is 3. Well, there we go. We have x to get from x to our long leg, which is what it's asking for, that original x. 3 times the square root of 3. Let's figure out what that decimal is. 3 times the square root of 3. 5.2. Looks like it's C. Again, last one. If you're like, I don't know how to do special rights, that makes no sense. I did not fail. I did not do good on that unit. That's completely okay, right? Let's talk about the trig way of doing it. All right, a lot of you guys are wonderful at trig. So we have the angle. Let's figure out what trig we use. That'll help us with the ratio. From our angle to one side we know is the opposite side. Oops, opposite. 6 is technically an adjacent side, but it's not the adjacent leg. It's actually our hypotenuse because it's across from that 90-degree. So the trig function, if you look up on the board, that uses O over H is sine. O is x. Hypotenuse is 6. And if we have x in our numerator, all we have to do is multiply that denominator on both sides. And that's what we just put into our calculator. So sine of 60, close that parenthesis, times 6 gives us that same exact answer, 5.2. If we round to the, Sometimes my thing doesn't work all the time. 5.2. Same thing. One gave me a little bit quicker than the other, but again, it's whatever you feel most comfortable with doing. Okay. 2 more, I know, just keep holding on. So 4 wants us to figure out what our x and y value are. So we're talking about that 60-30 triangle. Again, if you have it in your notes, you should have wrote both of these down. The side across from that 30 is our x. Our hypotenuse is 2 times x. And that side across from that 60-degree angle is x times the square root of 3. So I'm going to just quickly rewrite that. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. 60, 30, right. We have x, 2x, x times the square root of 3. Right, so, oh, that's nice. They gave us that short leg, which is x. To get from the short leg to that hypotenuse, we just multiply that by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. And again, from that short leg to that long leg, we multiply the short leg, by the square root of 3. So y should be 4 times the square root of 3. Okay, let's check. X is 8. The only one that matches that would be A. So really all you had to find was your x value. They didn't really care about y because that x was the only one that matched correctly. Okay, again, using trigonometry super quickly because we already have the answer. It doesn't matter what you have or where you start. Make sure, because I'm given all 3 sides, find one variable at a time. Okay, so in our case, let's use x for example. It doesn't matter. I'm going to find x, which is technically the hypotenuse. We know hypotenuse in all those examples are on the denominator. So I could go sine with the opposite, but that's y. I don't want x, so I don't want y over x. I have to solve for 2 variables. Can't solve for 2 variables in one equation. So let's do our adjacent side with that 4. So adjacent over hypotenuse is cosine. Okay, we talked about when x is in our denominator, all we have to do is switch the x in those trig functions a problem. So instead of saying 4 divided by x, we're going to say 4 divided by cosine of 60. Okay, so let's put that in our calculator. 4 divided by cosine of 60 equals 8. And that's exactly, that's exactly what we put as well. Okay, doing the same thing with y as well. Again, I would do that on your own. Make sure you show that on your paper so you know how to do it for the retest. Okay, beautiful. Last one, we're almost done. Very similar to number 4. They just kind of want us to figure out out of 1 and 2 which one's correct, out of 3 and 4 which one's right. So we're kind of checking our x, see if it's 8 or 16, and our y to see if it's 8 or 4 times the square root of 3. Again, we have that 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay, that 30 we normally represent as our x. Again, you can call it s if you want because we have a different thing. To get from that short leg to the hypotenuse, we multiply by 2. So x should technically be s, 2 times s, and then to get from that long leg, we take the s times the square root of 3, or s as the short leg times the square root of 3. Okay? Well, what I'm given is my long leg. Well, I have to go back to that short leg. That's my building block. So to get from my long leg to my short leg, let's divide by the square root of 3. So again, let's take this 8 times the square root of 3. 8 times the square root of 3. Let's go outside. Divided by that square root of 3. Again, we should be left with x. 8 for y, right? So y is our short leg. Y should be 8. So anything that has 4 in it, it's completely wrong. We have 4, 4. Awesome. So we're kind of left down to if x is going to be 8 or if x is going to be 16, right? Let me clear this a little bit. It's a little bit crazy. So we just found that y is 8. Well, we said before, again, don't erase yours. I just erased it so that way it's not so busy on my screen. We said to get from the short leg to the hypotenuse, all we had to do is multiply by 2. So what's 8 times 2? Well, that's 16. So the only one that would match that is 2. So D is our answer, right? We don't want it to be 1 because 1 says x is 8. That's not correct. 8 was actually our short leg for y, okay? Quickly, again, if you don't like special rights, perfectly fine. We can use our trig function as well. Again, doesn't matter where we start, just make sure you find one variable at a time. We have an angle, okay? An angle is 30. Let's solve for y. So again, we have our y, which is our opposite. Then the number, that value we have is actually the adjacent. So the trig function that uses opposite over adjacent is tangent. Opposite was y. Adjacent was 8 times the square root of 3. So again, anytime we have the variable at the top, all we have to do is multiply that denominator, that bottom part, on both sides. So that's what we got to put on our calculator. So tangent times 30, close that parenthesis, times 8 times the square root of 3. Again, you don't have to simplify it. Your calculator will already do it for you, which is correct. We just said that y is 8. We found that already. So we're just kind of proving our statement, how that works. Now let's do our x. Okay, we can use that y now because I know what it is. All right, so let's use this short leg. So from that 30, still using that same angle, let's use that opposite. Now let's use x, right? That's the one we're trying to solve for, which is the hypotenuse. O over h is sine. Oh, let's not put that O there. The opposite was 8. Hypotenuse was x. We've done this one literally so many times. X is in our denominator. Oops, let's use blue. Let's switch our trig function and our x value. So instead of saying 8 divided by x, let's say 8 divided by sine of 30. We're just switching them. That's all you're doing. So 8 divided by sine of 30. What do we get? 16. Ooh. Sorry, I just saw a flash of light for a second. Which is correct. So what we got right there for that trig function, y we got over there. Again, you might ask yourself, does it matter which one we find first? Nope, it doesn't. You could have found x first. Obviously, you probably wouldn't have been able to use that 8. You would have had to use 8 times the square root of 3, which would have just been adjacent over x, which you would have used cosine. Again, doesn't matter what trig function or what's x or y you find first, we still should have gotten y as 8 and x as 16. Two ways of thinking about it. You can use trig or you can use special rights. Special rights took me literally half as the amount of time, as it did those two trig problems. Right? Awesome. So again, you should be ready to take your interim retest. Do your absolute best to at least get 3 of them right. 3 still gives you 100% in that power school, in that grade book. But obviously our aim is to get all 4 right. So again, the only thing you should be using is your notes if you filled it in. That's the only thing you're allowed to use. Make sure we're not talking to people. Let's be honest, respectful, responsible. If I see you talking to anyone other than myself, then I will be taking that test and not allowing you to retest again. Okay, let's be honest and respectful. Okay, there should not be any talking anymore. Right? Bye guys, good luck.